Good morning on this lovely sunny bank holiday Monday. Well, it's bank holiday Monday in Ireland. I know it isn't in the UK, but I know for lots of you, it's kind of like a bank holiday every day-ish. Anyway, you're all very, very welcome. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rebecca, and I am a QTT personal development coach, mentor, and homeopath. And I use all three methods to help you and your family to be as healthy and as happy as you can possibly be and stay that way. And my Monday messages, which is what this video is part of, are about sharing my knowledge and my skills with you so that you can feel and be supported in making just little, quite simple daily positive changes. And these all add up and enable you to lead a peaceful and full life in the best way that you possibly can. They help you to negotiate all the challenges that life brings us on a daily basis with relative ease and calm, and that's always good, I think. Anyway, you're very welcome, and today I am going to talk about communication, and it's something that popped up. There were actually about 3, I think, episodes this week that actually gave me the idea of talking about communication with you. Obviously, it's a hugely important part of being a human being, is communicating with other human beings, and how we do that, understanding how we do that best, how we receive information and how we give information is really, really important in ensuring that we actually do connect with people and that we're able to get across what we want to get across, and we're also able to receive whatever information we need to receive in order to move forward, to progress and to grow. Good morning, Sarah. You're very, very welcome. I'll give you a little wave. I'm just talking this morning about communication and the importance of communication. And that's something that I know you do very well, Sarah. So really understanding our unique ways of learning, of taking on board information from other people, and also being able to give it in a way that the other person actually hears can make a massive, massive difference to our lives. And I know, most of us are kind of closeted with our immediate family. And thanks, Sarah. And we kind of tend to assume that our immediate family speak the same language as we do, that they understand things in the same way that we do. But that's not actually true. And if we persist in talking in a way that works for us, with the focus on what is important for us, and we assume that everybody else does the same, then we're going to miss out on an awful lot. And it can lead to a lot of frustration and a lot of miscommunication, and a lot of unnecessary arguments, I guess. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So really just kind of reeling back, for those of you who are familiar with the work that I do and with personal development work in general, we kind of know that we all have a unique way of looking at the world, that our perspective on the world is formed by what's happened to us, the experiences that we've had in life, firstly, but also what we've decided to believe about those experiences, what feelings we've attached to those experiences, and what beliefs we've set up. And then our behaviour is informed by whatever we've chosen to attach to those experiences. And in much the same way, our language does as well. Our way of actually using language, literally, words, is formed by what's important to us, what resonates with us, and what we notice, and what our radar picks up on. And it's not the same as anyone else's. I can't tell you the number of times I've had in the past, I've had discussions with my husband and we've come to some sort of conclusion and I thought it was all terribly clear. And then, sometime later, it becomes horribly apparent that, in fact, my husband's actually understood something completely different, or my son, or, whatever. And you find yourself thinking, was I even actually in the same room as that person? Did we even have that discussion? And that is because my husband's focus, my husband's way of communicating is very, very different to mine. And my son is different too. And several of these examples popped up this week to actually illustrate that point. Now, obviously, I have done quite a lot of conscious work on this. So I'm able to deal with things much, much better than I did in the past. Sarah's saying, oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one that happens to. No, absolutely. And actually, I should say, Sarah, even with the work that I've done, if you're caught off guard or if you're just not being terribly conscious that day, you can still get sucked into that. What? What was that about? Good morning, Neve. You're very, very welcome. The couple of examples that I came up with this week. One was, my son, great example, actually. The way that he receives information, he's quite a visual person. So he needs to have things written down. So if he's had a list of chores thrown at him, audibly in a list that has been spoken to him, the person who's giving it might as well not bother, to be honest, because he doesn't hear half of what's been told to him. If you write down a list for him, he will go through it diligently and do every single one. He needs to have it written down. He needs to see it in some way. So I've learned now that if I want him to do any chores, then that's what I have to do. I have to write down a list, or I have to ask him to write it down as we go through it, and then it'll get done. My husband is a very audio-driven communicator. So he listens very intently. He can repeat information back almost verbatim, which is awesome. But if you write it down, he doesn't do that, doesn't do looking at written things. He needs to hear it. And it means that he's very actually easily disturbed by noise. He's very easily thrown off balance by noise that comes in that isn't part of what he's saying or listening to. He loves listening to podcasts and radio, almost more than TV, actually. So that's where his means of communication comes in. So teaching him that if he wants to get our son to do anything, he's going to have to either write it down or instruct our son Owen to write it down for himself is an ongoing chore for me, I can tell you. Anyway, so understanding how we look at things and just taking notice of what works best for us can obviously change how you feel about exchanges and how you learn. So if you're doing any kind of course, or you might be doing that online at the moment, or you might be just you might still be working from home and receiving information from from other people that you work with, whatever it is, or whether it's just communicating with family. You can easily get sucked into getting really annoyed if they're not hearing you, or they're just not understanding what you say. So rather than kind of going down that route of just getting more and more and more and more annoyed, just stop and think, hang on a second, how do I need to hear this information so that I can act on it and so it actually means something to me? Maybe I need to ask them to stop while I write this down if I'm a visual person. Maybe I can communicate to them in language that they understand. I'm sure you've all done those very generalised quizzes that are in magazines, and a lot of them are online now, determine your personality type by filling in this quiz. Pretty much those quizzes and those kind of personality type things are based on studies that were done that sort of corralled people really into 4 different groups of the way that they received information. So they are very generalised, and they can actually, you can behave or need to learn in slightly different ways in different situations. But very broadly speaking, people are categorised into these 4 different groups. So what I wanted you to do this week is just to start having a think about what's the best way for you, the most productive way for you to receive information, first of all. And then once you've actually established that, and it'd be lovely if you could share it with me, and if you actually already know, let me know how you receive information. But I'll give you the 4 categories. Then once you've recognised it in yourself, then you can start asking for people to give you the information in that format, or you can do something yourself that helps you to receive it in that way. Good morning, Noel. You're very welcome. So, and then after that even, you can start noticing perhaps how your partner communicates. And a lot of the clues are in the language that people use. So the first category is the visual category. So that's somebody who, when they're receiving information, is already conjuring up images and pictures in their head. They need to see some sort of picture to make sense of it. They very much notice their surroundings, they notice appearances, they notice how things look, basically. And they will use language like, I can't quite picture that, or let me give you an image of that. Or, it's quite literal, but people do use their language, reflects how they are processing. The next group would be very much audible. That's my husband most of the time. So these are people who really need to hear how information is got across. They often, you can see that they're really concentrating hard when they're listening. So they'll often put their head on one side. They may even, how you see some kids when they're reading, they'll be moving their lips while they're reading. They often talk to themselves. So they need to actually process information by repeating it to themselves and almost having a conversation with themselves. So they'll use language that backs that up. I hear what you're saying. That sounds good to me. That kind of language. The third category is the kinesthetic category. And these are people who very much need to be touching or actually doing tasks in order to learn them. And actually, this is really, really common, excuse me, in most children, which is why the education system is so hard on the majority of children, because if you think about it, from a very young age, they're asked to sit still and listen. And, that's fine if you happen to be audible in your primary learning filter. Not so fine if you need to touch, you need to do, you need to feel things. And that's actually how most children learn. And some people will be like that for the rest of their lives. So they're going to need to actually physically do whatever the task is in order to actually really learn it and really get to grips with it. So, and again, their language will support that. The fourth group is a group called the Audible Digital, and it's kind of a mix. You can have elements of all of the previous three groups, but they're very much focused on being very logical, being very black and white, being very fact-based, very evidence-based, almost kind of like a computer. And a lot of their language will support that. That doesn't compute with me. That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't add up. That kind of language. My tech guy, my technical support guy, who I had to get help from this week, very much like that. And he's brilliant at what he does. And, I love all my technical support teams that I have for my online systems. When I first started working with this particular guy, he used to drive me to distraction. I mean, it wasn't really him. It was us not being able to connect because we were speaking a different language. Because I need to have details. I need to have, I'm quite a visual person, so I need to have a picture. I need to have flesh put on the bones of the information that I'm given, if you like. I need to be able to create that picture in my head, both a bigger picture and smaller pictures to enable me to get to that big picture, if that makes sense. But my technical support guy, good morning, Caroline. You're very welcome. We're talking about communication. My technical support guy is not like that. He will give you black and white, no frills. This is how it is. And it just doesn't resonate with me. I can't create a picture from that. So we would spend hours emailing each other back and forth and just not getting it. And I would be getting more and more and more frustrated and annoyed that I couldn't understand what he was saying. So now, because I know the way that he communicates with me, and with everybody, I assume, and the way that I need to receive the information, it's actually, I'm quite amused by it because it's an exercise for me in creativity. I have to think about how I word my questions in order to get the information that I actually need. And actually, it makes me think in a much more technical, stripped down way about what it is I actually need. So it's a good exercise for me. It's good learning for me. And it means that I'm the toing and froing with the emails is way less than it used to be. But also, much more importantly, I'm not getting frustrated. I'm not getting annoyed. I'm not getting wound up by it. And of course, I do get the information that I need, mostly. So that's what I wanted you to do this week, is just start to become aware of how you receive information in the best way for you, asking for it. So just hang on a second, I just need to get a pen and I need to write this down, otherwise I'll forget. Or, could you write that down for me? I often will say to people, particularly salesmen, I know salesmen are slightly different, but if somebody's phoning me up, giving me loads of information, I have to just say, sorry, I just won't take in what you're saying on the phone. Can you write it down for me? Can you put it in an email and send it to me? And then I will come back to you. And that way I can digest it, I can process it, and I can get whatever I need from it. It just doesn't work for me to have somebody talking in my ear. And it particularly doesn't work for me because communication is not just about the words that we use. Obviously, incorporated in our way of understanding what's being communicated to us and how we do it is it's our words, but it's our tone of voice. It's our reading our faces. There's a whole way of communicating that is based on facial recognition only, no language. And it's really, really awesomely accurate and gives huge amounts of information. It's developed by the nomads, the nomadic tribes in the Middle East, actually, who all spoke totally different languages. So they had to develop a kind of facial recognition, facial reading technique that gave them as much information as possible so that they could recognise when they came across strangers, are they friends or foe, in essence, and that it's actually used in things like criminal profiling and all sorts of things. So reading someone's body language and what's going on with their face, what their eyes are doing, where their eyes are going, all that kind of stuff is all part of our subconscious communication with each other. And obviously when we're dealing with emails and texts and things like that, we don't have any of that often. So it's particularly important to actually drill down, if you like, and look at our words and what we're actually writing and stand back from it and go, okay, well, is that helpful to me, first of all, if I was the person on the other end of this? But if I know that I'm dealing with somebody who actually communicates in a totally different way to me, is this going to help them? Do I maybe need to actually tweak it a bit or rephrase it, use slightly different language in order to get my point across? So have a think about that. Practice asking for receiving information in the way that works for you. Good morning. Who is this? I can't see who that is. No, can't see who you are, but whoever you are, you're very welcome. And thanks for the thumbs up. Breed, good morning. Yeah, we're coming to the end now, Breed, but we're just talking about communication and the importance of understanding how you process information and how you get information across, how other people get information across, and just being mindful of that so that you can avoid conflict. You can avoid getting sucked into, why aren't they understanding me? Am I speaking a different language? And I mean, yeah, you are, basically, in essence. So that feeling with your partner where you think, am I even on the same planet, is often about the fact that you need to communicate. Oh, Breed's saying, I'll watch on the replay. Yeah, perfect, Breed. So if you can determine which of the 4 options you are more likely to receive information, in that way, then I'd love to hear, and I can give you possibly some more information about that so that'll help you kind of get a hold of it. So just a quick recap, we're talking about, do you receive information most productively when you see it, which is the first group, when you hear it, the second group, when you can touch it or feel it or do it, whatever the task is, that's the third group. Or do you need to have it very factual, very logical, very black and white, just, stark, kind of computerized, if you like? So those are the 4 categories. I should add, none of them are more right or wrong than the others. They're just different ways of communication. just the same as, all across the world we have different languages. That's all it is. But we wouldn't dream of trying to get across what we were, trying to get someone to do if we knew they were actually only able to speak Japanese and we're only able to speak English, or the other way around. We'd find other ways to communicate. And it's pretty much the same. It's just not as conscious, if you like. So practice with your partners or your kids, or even yourself, and see what comes up. And I'd love to hear the results of that. So I hope that's been useful. Do enjoy your bank holiday if you're here in Ireland, and if not, then just enjoy the day. Have a fantastic week. If you do think that, you'd like to do some further work on this, on communication or any other kind of personal development consciousness, then do pop onto my website. It's www.rebeccaatkinson.com, and I'll put that link in the post with this video. You can respond to this video by putting a comment below. I'd love you to. You can, if you do go to the site, you can register for a free phone call with me, and you can just find out how I might be of help to you. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, then do post them up and I'll answer them now. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. There's somebody else online too, and I can't see who it is for some reason. No, I don't know if I'll ever get to grips totally with Facebook and how it works, but I'm doing my best. Anyway, I will assume that you have no questions, but if you're watching the replay, it's not too late. Do pop them up. Oh, now Sarah's saying, thanks for that, Rebecca. Did something similar in a previous life using Myers-Briggs, but always good to have a reminder. Okay, very good. Yeah, I mean, reminders all the time. It's a practice, and, we can all forget things, we can get rusty, we can just, life takes over, basically. But just being mindful and conscious of what drives us and the differences between us, and not judging people because they don't speak the same language as you. Just going, okay, yeah, he or she, they're processing differently from me, is a huge step forward, I think. And we could all do with reminders, definitely. So thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for listening. And yeah, love to hear from you. Which way do you process information best? Okay, take care. Bye.